While much of Asia fell under the shadow of European empires, one island nation stood apart, proud, isolated, and undefeated. From India to Indonesia, from China to Burma, the great powers of Europe carved up the East, but Japan, small, mountainous, and resource-poor, remained unconquered. This is the story of how Japan defied colonization through isolation, strategy, and an astonishing transformation that turned it from a target into an empire of its own. In the early 1600s, Japan made a decision that would change its destiny. Under the rule of the Tokugawa shogunate, the country sealed itself off from the world. Foreign missionaries were expelled, trade was tightly controlled, and the penalty for bringing in foreign ideas was death. For more than 250 years, Japan lived in near-total isolation, a policy known as sakoku, the closed country, while neighboring nations like India, China, and the Philippines opened their ports to European traders and later, European warships. Japan kept its distance. This isolation preserved its independence but came at a price. No new technology, no contact with the outside world, and a rigid social hierarchy. Yet that same isolation became Japan's greatest defense. When European empires looked east, Japan was simply off the map. That changed in 1853 when American warships under Commodore Matthew Perry appeared in Tokyo Bay. The black-hulled steamships carried cannons and a message: open your ports or face war. For the first time in centuries, Japan confronted the industrial might of the West and realized just how far behind it had fallen. But unlike China, which resisted Western influence and was forced into humiliating treaties, Japan took a different path. Its leaders understood a painful truth. To survive, they would have to modernize or perish. In 1868, the Tokugawa shogunate collapsed, and a new era began, the Meiji Restoration. Emperor Meiji and his advisors launched one of the most radical transformations in history. In just a few decades, Japan went from a feudal state of samurai and farmers to a modern industrial power. They imported Western science, technology, and military strategy, but kept Japanese discipline, unity, and spirit. Railroads, factories, and warships appeared almost overnight. By the end of the 19th century, Japan had built an army and navy strong enough to challenge the very empires that once threatened it. In 1894, Japan went to war with China and won. A decade later, in 1904, it did the unthinkable. Japan defeated Russia, one of Europe's great powers, in the Russo-Japanese War. For the first time in modern history, an Asian nation had defeated a European empire on the battlefield. The victory sent shockwaves across the world, from London to Delhi, from Paris to New York. To Western observers, Japan had performed a miracle. To the colonized peoples of Asia, it was proof that an Eastern nation could stand as an equal. So why was Japan never colonized? Because it learned faster than anyone else. While others resisted change, Japan mastered adaptation. It used Western knowledge without surrendering its identity. Its geography, surrounded by ocean, shielded by mountains, bought it time, but its discipline and unity turned that time into power. Even as the British ruled India and the French took Indochina, Japan had already joined the ranks of empires. By the early 1900s, it had colonies of its own, in Korea, Taiwan, and beyond. It had not only avoided colonization, it had become a colonizing power itself. Japan's story is both inspiring and sobering. Its survival was born from strength, but also ambition. The same drive that saved it from conquest would later lead it into the tragedies of World War II. Yet the deeper lesson endures. Knowledge and unity are the greatest defenses a nation can have. From isolation to empire, from wooden ships to modern battleships, Japan's transformation remains one of history's most extraordinary feats. While the world around it was divided, conquered, and exploited, Japan proved that even the smallest nation can resist domination, if it has the will to adapt and the courage to change. And that is why Japan was never colonized. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the History Vault for more powerful lessons and hidden stories from the past.